the Starfleet life with the USS Dauntless. Are you brave enough to be a Starfleet officer? Do you have what it takes? Greetings. I am Admiral Owen Swart, Commanding Officer, USS Dauntless, and this is the briefing with the Admiral for Stardate negative 250142.1. I am the Admiral in question, and today we're going to be talking about accountability. But before we do that, let's just take care of the necessaries. That is to say that first, we record these sessions every Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. South African Standard Time. And if you're an active duty member of the Dauntless crew, you can join us live in Discord here in the screening room channel to participate in the chat. You can ask me questions, you can log mission attendance, and that kind of thing. Everyone else is welcome to watch the live stream on YouTube. So if you're not available at the time, you can't join us for the live stream, you're welcome to watch it back later, either on YouTube or on Facebook. If you have a question or a comment, please remember to @tag me in the chat. So this is active duty members who are on Discord. Please @tag me in the chat. There's often a lively conversation that happens during these streaming sessions. And in order to make sure that I see your question when I get back to it at the end during the Q&A, make sure that you @tag me so that it's highlighted in the chat for me. If you are on YouTube or you're watching this later, you're welcome to ask questions either in the chat or in the comments section or on Facebook, or you can message me directly wherever you like. I'll do my best to address your concern there and then, or I might use it in an upcoming video, which would be nice for everybody, I think. And then the question is, well, who are we? What are we doing? Why are we here? The USS Dauntless is a future-focused action and advocacy group that is, at its core, a Star Trek fan club. USS Dauntless is a chapter of Starfleet, the International Star Trek Fan Association Incorporated, which is the largest fan-run Star Trek fan organization in the world. Starfleet International, or SFI, uses the metaphor of a starship to organize its chapter structure and activities. So the Dauntless is one such starship or chapter. We are the chapter that's based in Cape Town, South Africa, but it's not an actual starship, obviously. There's no real ship. Instead, it's a community of like-minded people who promote Star Trek both as a form of entertainment and as a vision for the future while taking action towards that future. The Dauntless's mission is to promote the values and philosophy of Star Trek, to provide a space for fans to connect and to engage in activities that help promote those values here in Cape Town, South Africa, and beyond. All right, so let's get to today's topic, which is accountability. Let's define it. Let's see what we're talking about here. So accountability is the obligation or willingness to accept responsibility for one's actions. So your decisions, and the consequences, more importantly, the consequences of your actions and your decisions. It involves being answerable to yourself and to others, the people around you, for fulfilling your commitments, the commitments that you've made to yourself and to those people, meeting the expectations that you have for yourself and the expectations that you've cultivated in other people, and upholding ethical or legal standards. Those two things are different. They're not the same. Accountability means taking ownership of your actions, your decisions, and their outcomes, whether it's positive or negative. And it's about being answerable to yourself, to an organization, or to the people, to the people around you for what you say you will do. So it includes things like responsibility, which is clearly understanding and accepting your duties or your commitments. So the commitments that you've already made, knowing what it is that you've committed to. It's about transparency or communication. So being open about your actions and your decisions. So not just toiling away in obscurity. You need to be open with the other stakeholders who are relevant to your project about what your actions and decisions are, and allowing for evaluation and feedback, because other people might have opinions and they might be justified and worthwhile and valuable opinions on what you're doing. It's about the consequences, and that is accepting the praise or the blame. That's the positive or the negative feedback, the rewards or the penalties based on the results of your actions. And it's about continuous improvement, which is similar to our concept of mission readiness, which is about learning from your successes and failures to improve future performance. It's a kind of a narrow targeted version of mission readiness, but it's the same basic idea: continuous improvement, learning from what you've done, learning from the feedback that you've received, and the positive and negative outcomes of your previous actions and decisions, and improving on what you do in the future. So in a practical sense, accountability applies to individuals, to teams, organizations, and it fosters trust, efficiency through continuous improvement, and integrity by ensuring that people follow through on their commitments. And these are the kinds of things that we value here in the Dauntless. These are the values of a Starfleet officer. So accountability arguably is the cornerstone of success. So accountability is not only a desirable trait. It's not only something we want to cultivate because it's nice. It's because it's the bedrock upon which the success of any organization, but especially SFI, Starfleet International, or the Dauntless, and its mission is built. Every crew member, regardless of your rank or position, must take ownership of their duties and their responsibilities. It also helps to foster a thriving community. So a strong and cohesive community can only be achieved when each member feels a sense of responsibility towards the collective. If we're just here, we're just names on the list, we're not really contributing towards the mission of the USS Dauntless. We have nothing invested emotionally or in terms of effort or anything like that, ideologically, in the outcomes of the Dauntless mission. And that's where accountability matters. We want people to have a stake in what the Dauntless does and and how our mission is fulfilled. And so we rely on accountability to help to foster our thriving community. It's the members who have taken accountability for their actions here in the Dauntless that are the biggest contributors to our mission. Because it helps to foster trust and mutual respect. We've done a briefing on respect, and we've spoken about that specifically. And it has a shared commitment to the well-being of the ship and its crew. If everybody has an vested interest in the well-being of the ship and of the community we built here, of the crew of the ship, then everybody is accountable to each other and to yourself. I would argue that accountability is the essence of Starfleet. It's not just a professional obligation. It's the embodiment of the values and the ideals that define a Starfleet officer. It's a reflection of things like integrity, discipline, and commitment, and the highest standards of service, or excellence, which is another one of the key values of a Starfleet officer. But it's not a simple thing. So let's break accountability down into the various different facets of it. So one of which is individual responsibility. So when we're talking about accountability from a personal point of view, each crew member must be accountable for their actions and the impact that those actions, their decisions, their words, the things that they do in the world have on the ship and its mission. Because the Dauntless is not a thing that is separate from each and every one of us. The Dauntless is the sum of us. We are all part of the Dauntless. And when any one of us does a thing or makes a choice or says a thing, it reflects back on the Dauntless, on the rest of the collective, on the group. So our individual activity, our individual actions are accountable. We are accountable for our individual actions to the rest of the group. But the group itself has a kind of collective responsibility, a collective accountability. So the crew as a whole must be accountable for the overall success of the mission and the well-being of the ship, because we are all contributing to it. Not all of us are in the front lines. Not all of us are in the communications department where we get to write copy and take photographs for social media. Not all of us are in the science department where we're doing the research. Not all of us are in the medical department where we're scheduling the blood donation missions. The people who are in operations and engineering and security, people who are working behind the scenes to support the rest of us, are all equally part of that mission. And the actions and words and commitments and everything that each one of those people does towards the Dauntless's combined mission is part of that collective responsibility. But there's also the responsibility, the accountability of leadership. So officers in general, big O officers, commissioned officers, must be accountable for setting a positive example and maintaining high standards of conduct. So we as commissioned officers in particular have taken on a certain, I hesitate to use the word authority, but I suppose that's not wrong, but more in a social sense than a legal sense, as it would be in the military. We've taken on kind of a social authority by donning the pips on our collar. We've taken the step of registering with Starfleet International. We've written the OTS exam. Most of us have written the Officers Command College exam. We understand the inner workings of how Starfleet functions as an organization, not only Starfleet, but also the USS Dauntless, because we've all taken the orientation exam. As commissioned officers, we must set the standard for that we hold the rest of the crew to. We have to live by that standard every day, whether it's ensuring that our uniform is correct and accurate, whether it's attending priority 1 missions timeously and regularly, whether it's being engaged in the monthly challenges from month to month. And that's why these kinds of things are mandatory requirements when we're looking to appoint somebody to a duty station position, because this is the duty station position is the ultimate accountable position on board the Dauntless. When you're signing up for a duty station, we are holding you accountable for the commitment that you're making. And with that specific commitment, with that set of deliverables that you're committing to, comes the suite of other expectations and accountabilities that come with it. You're stepping up and becoming a leader within our community, and leadership is something of a burden. We are all burdened with it, those of us who have stepped up to that level of authority. All of which means that transparency and communication are essential. So open communication and transparency are non-negotiable for fostering a culture of accountability, because we're accountable not only to the people above us in the chain of command, not only the people that we submit our reports to, but we are also accountable to the people who look to us for leadership, who look to us for guidance, who ask us questions, and who are looking to us to be the representatives of them and their aspirations towards their future Starfleet careers. We are accountable 360 degrees to our superiors, to our peers, and to our subordinates. Of course, within Starfleet International context, the notion of superiors and subordinates isn't the same as it is in the military. Please take those kinds of terms I use with a pinch of salt. We don't think of things in quite that term here, but it's part of the metaphor. So accountability involves taking responsibility for both the successes and failures. So when mistakes are made, it's crucial to acknowledge those mistakes, acknowledge the errors. Making excuses doesn't do anything to foster trust. We have to acknowledge when we've messed up, and to learn from the mistakes that we've made. So it can be difficult. As humans, we have a tendency to want to brush our errors under the carpet, but that's not useful. We can't learn from that. If we're hiding our mistakes, we're not going to be able to develop that in a future-focused direction. We need to look at the errors that we've made, the things that we've tried to do that didn't work out, so that we can restrict our margins of error in the future. We know that, okay, that didn't work, so let's try this other thing. Even a mistake is still a success in a way, because you're learning that thing didn't work. So you're still making progress. And it's a continuous process. Accountability is continuous. So it's not just a one-time event. It doesn't just crop up every now and then when you've made a mistake or when you've done something cool. It's every minute of every day. It's a continuous process that requires ongoing commitment and effort from every member of the crew. So let's look at what accountability looks like in specific terms of a Starfleet officer. So within Starfleet and within the USS Dauntless. Now, one of the canards we talk about is from Star Trek: The Next Generation, the first duty, where Picard says that the first duty is to the truth. And this is something that couldn't be more true. We are Starfleet officers in the same way that the fictional Starfleet officers are, in that our first duty is also to the truth. So honesty and forthrightness in all actions are paramount. Not only that, but deception and misinformation have no place in Starfleet. I'm going to caveat that and say that within the context of a game, a little bit of deception doesn't hurt, but if that's part of the game, if we're playing Among Us, deception is part of the game. But we're all stepping into that game knowing that deception is part of it. And we all understand the confines within that deception can take place. So generally speaking, within the broader context, there's no place for deception and misinformation in Starfleet. And it's our duty, all of our duty, to uphold the truth, even when it's inconvenient. In fact, especially when it's inconvenient, and to maintain trust and strengthens the organization. Another important value that we've talked about before is my word is my bond, which means keeping promises and fulfilling commitments, which builds reliability and respect. So people respect you if they think of you as reliable. You built up the reputation of being someone who is reliable. It is based on the basis of the fact that you keep your promises and you fulfill the commitments that you make. That's the only way to do it, is by showing up and doing the thing that you say you're going to do, or at least making a conspicuous effort to do so. Nobody's actually expecting you to win at everything that you think you're going to do. Nobody's actually expecting you to succeed at everything first time. But what everyone is expecting you to do is to make good on your promises. If you've committed to doing a thing, people need to see that you're at least trying to do that thing, even if you don't succeed. Starfleet Officers' word carries weight and should never be given lightly. If you don't think that you're going to be able to even try to do a thing, don't say that you will. You can say, I can try and do this thing. That's fine if you actually mean it, if you actually think you're going to give it a try. But don't commit to something that you know you can't complete just because you think that it would look cool. There's a habit which our current Fleet Admiral Nottage has been working to squash within a lot of departments of Starfleet International, which is a practice called hat collecting. So whenever you sign up for a position anywhere in Starfleet, you are given a title that goes with that position. So in the same way that duty stations here on the Dauntless have a specific title, the same is true of positions throughout Starfleet. Multiple departments and auxiliaries have dozens of these positions. And there is a thing that some people do, probably with the best of intentions. I don't think anyone's doing this cynically, but it's a thing that has happened, and I've observed it happening in the past, that people will notice that a new position has come up in the Humanoid Resources website. Oh, cool, there's this thing that's available. I think I could probably do that job. And that would be a cool sounding job title to have in my email signature. So they'll sign up for that job and they'll take that job without necessarily having given any thought to whether or not they actually have the capacity to do that job. And then people are relying on them to do that job and the job goes undone. I'm not going to mention any names or specifics, so please don't ask. But this has happened many times. It's happened here on the Dauntless. It's happened in our regional staff. It's happened at every level of Starfleet that I've seen. This happens fairly often. People think that it would be cool to have a particular title. They think it would be prestigious or nifty or fun. And it's almost never as much fun as they think it's going to be. And when the time comes for the work to be done, the work doesn't happen. So these people have a reputation for being hat collectors, in the word of Fleet Admiral Nottage. And so he has made it a part of his campaign or his administration over the last couple of years to identify these people operating at high levels of Starfleet and to convince them to step aside from these positions that we know that they are not fulfilling, to manage their workload more effectively so that they are able to service the positions that they have committed to, instead of having a list of 15 titles on their email signature where none of that work is being done. Rather have one title when you're able to where they know they're going to be able to devote their resources to doing that. And once they've got that on farm, once they've locked that in, they can then maybe consider taking on a second position. So hat farming is an issue. Again, I don't think anybody's doing this cynically. I don't think anybody's doing it on purpose, but it is a thing that happens perhaps without people giving the right amount of thought. So a Starfleet officer's word carries weight and should never be given lightly. It's quite a hard-hitting and content-laden statement. Before you give your word, before you commit to doing a thing, make sure that you are confident that you can actually do it, because giving your word means people are going to hold you to that. Consistency between words and actions is essential for effective leadership and teamwork. So whether you're leading the team or whether you're on a team, doing what you say you're going to do, or at least making a conspicuous effort to do the things that you say you're going to do, is crucial. And not doing that means that people will develop a poor opinion of you. Your reputation will suffer as a result. Then there's the value of trust, but verify. So while trust in colleagues is vital, we need to be able to trust each other in order to function as part of a community, as part of an organization. But that doesn't mean that everybody is perfect. It doesn't mean that people can't make errors. So when somebody tells you something, you have to take at their word. But it doesn't hurt if you possibly can to make sure that what they're telling you is accurate. It's not that they're lying to you necessarily, it's that they could be mistaken. So trust what people are saying. Don't assume malice. Don't assume that people are lying, but also make sure that what they're saying is accurate. Double checking information, confirming orders, and seeking clarification prevents misunderstandings. We want to make sure that everybody is on the same page, and verifying your information doesn't hurt anybody, because this allows us to balance trust with healthy skepticism, and which promotes efficiency and mitigates risk. Healthy skepticism as opposed to sort of antisocial cynicism, assuming that everybody's lying to you. Most people are not lying to you most of the time. So we can probably trust that people are not telling us fibs, but that doesn't mean that they can't be wrong. Also, the values of commitment and responsibility. So taking ownership of tasks and following through on your obligations is crucial. I'm harping on this again. If you've committed to doing a task, that means we're counting on you to do it. If you've said you're going to do it, we're waiting for you to produce that work. If you're not able to do it, or if you've said that you're going to do a thing and then you discover that actually, no, wait, I can't actually do this thing, transparency is essential. We need you to feed back to the people around you, to the other stakeholders of the project, your direct superior or whoever it is, that look, turns out I'm not actually able to do this. And then that can be reassigned to somebody else, or your superior can take on that work, or perhaps it can be decided that we can live without that piece of work, whatever it might be. But taking ownership, and that's what taking ownership means, is you are owning that piece of work, whether it's you doing that work yourself, you're getting somebody to help you do that work, or you're returning that work back to the person you received it from because you're not able to complete it. But just taking on that work and then it just disappears into the void, that's not a way to be, either in Starfleet or in real life. What am I talking about? Starfleet is real life, but in the rest of your life. Supporting team members and offering assistance fosters a culture of collaboration. So if you see that a member of your team is struggling under the load that they're working under, if they've taken on work that they perhaps suddenly are finding more difficult to complete, maybe they've offered to write 15 pieces of content for our Facebook feed, and after the third one you can see that they're slowing down and struggling. It doesn't hurt for you to offer to pitch in and assist. Maybe that person just needs a second pair of eyes or a second hand to assist with that work, and then they're able to complete it. The whole team is accountable for the actions of that one person. Recognizing the impact of one's actions and taking responsibility for them cultivates accountability. In fact, I would say that that is the definition of accountability. We also, as Starfleet officers, because we've opted into this status, we have a duty to the mission that we've committed to. So Starfleet's duty to the mission. Dedication to Starfleet's goals and adherence to standing orders are non-negotiable. That might be a little strong. We have 5 standing orders here on the Dauntless, most of which are aspirational. They are things that we work towards as an ultimate goal, and I wouldn't say that they're necessarily non-negotiable, but some aspects of it are. So one of the things that is non-negotiable is attendance of Priority 1 events. These are the most important events, and these are events that are set up under Standing Order number 2. Priority 1 events are mandatory for all active duty personnel. You are required to attend, and by becoming a Starfleet officer, you are committing to do that. And that is part of the accountability of being a Starfleet officer. Prioritizing the mission above personal interests ensures organizational cohesion. Now, we're not saying that we're pretending that real life doesn't get in the way. Things happen. If you have to work, you have to work. If family members get sick and people go away on holidays and that kind of thing, that nobody's pretending that that kind of thing doesn't happen. But bearing in mind that Starfleet is a commitment that each of us has made as a Starfleet officer, and we have taken on board an obligation to consider that as one of our priorities. Now, each of us has to balance our personal priorities one against the other, but simply because something else has come up that might be more interesting or might be more fun on the day of a Priority 1 mission doesn't mean that it's okay to drop the Priority 1 mission in favor of that other thing. That Priority 1 mission is Priority 1, and we need to treat it with the respect to which it is deserving. Understanding the broader context of tasks and their contribution to the overall mission enhances performance. So this is an aspect of accountability where it comes to transparency. The people who have created the tasks relating to a project need to be communicating with the people who are expected to do that work, what the relevance is of that task, why that task needs to happen. Why are we asking you to write this piece of copy? Why are we asking you to moderate this communication forum? All of these things are important. Just do it is not a sufficient justification, especially in a volunteer organization like ours. Everybody needs to be made aware of the reason behind the things that they're being asked to do and why they're being asked to commit to a specific task. That will help everybody understand the importance of why that piece of work needs to be done and why we are all accountable to that aspect of the mission. We also have a suite of protocols here aboard the Dauntless. Perhaps too many, but that's okay. Protocols are predetermined sequences by which we do specific things. And these things have been worked out over time and customized and tweaked and upgraded and improved upon because we do these things so often that we have figured out what is probably the best way of doing them. It doesn't mean that those things aren't subject to improvement in the future as new systems come online, as new factors, new ways of living come online. We might need to adjust our protocols and modify them accordingly. But the protocols exist for a reason, and ignoring them just makes more work for everybody else. Here's an example. Whenever we have a mission, we have a specific protocol by which that mission is run. It starts with submitting a mission proposal, which is then assessed and approved by the command staff. The mission then happens, at which time the mission commander is expected to facilitate the mission and then capture a roll call and then submit that roll call as well as any other relevant information as part of a mission report back to the command staff so that the mission package can be reported up the chain of command so that we all know what needs to happen. That is the accepted protocol. If any one of those aspects, any one of those parts in the chain doesn't happen, then the mission doesn't happen. Even once the mission has already been flown, once the mission is complete, if that report isn't submitted at the end of the process by the mission commander, then there's no evidence that that mission ever took place. There's no way to verify that it actually happened. And for all intents and purposes, the mission didn't take place. And everybody who did take the time and made the effort to attend the mission, their time has been wasted because as far as we can tell, the mission doesn't exist. So every aspect as part of that protocol needs to take place. Now, the way that protocol is enacted, the way it's done, the way the actual work of each step of that process is undertaken is constantly under scrutiny. And we're always looking at ways of improving and streamlining and simplifying the process so that each step requires less admin and less work, but each step still needs to take place in one way or another. So that is why protocols are important. So adhering to established protocols promotes safety. Physical safety perhaps is less of an issue, but safety in terms of everybody's time and energy being respected. Protocols exist for a reason and should be followed unless exceptional circumstances dictate otherwise. Yeah, exactly. So the protocols that we have, although they are quite thoroughly tested over time, that doesn't mean that they are necessarily constructed to accommodate every eventuality, and any given mission could throw up exceptions that are not necessarily covered by the protocol. And when that happens, consult with the senior staff who can then make decisions about how that can be either slotted into the initial or proper protocol, or how we can adjust the protocol accordingly, either on a case-by-case basis or perhaps in perpetuity. Deviating from protocols requires authorization and clear justification. Exactly. So it's not okay to just decide that you're going to flout the protocols because you just don't care. You actually need to run it up the chain of command so that the stakeholders in the project know that the protocols are inadequate for this situation and why that might be the case. What is it about your specific mission that means that the standard protocols are not suitable for the circumstance? You need to be able to justify why that's required. Which brings us to reporting and communication. So regular communication with superiors, so people above you in the chain of command, and team members, so that's your colleagues, ensures everybody is informed and aligned. Making sure everybody has all the information they need in order to make the decisions they need to make is essential. Providing updates on your progress and highlighting potential issues and seeking guidance when needed are also essential. So again, this is if you've taken on responsibility for a particular piece of work and you're not sure that it's going to come in on time, or you've hit a snag on it and you're not sure how to resolve it. Sitting on that piece of information and not telling anybody, not sharing it with anybody, just going quiet is not going to help anybody. You need to let everybody know, or everybody who has is a stakeholder in that process, you need to let them know what's going on so that they can help you get past that roadblock. Whether that roadblock is you just don't know how to solve the problem, or maybe you've run out of time, you've got some kind of domestic emergency that needs your attention, anything like that, anything that's getting in the way of you delivering that piece of work, the people who are responsible for that work, which is the rest of your team and your department head, they need to know about that issue. Utilizing appropriate communication channels and tools facilitates information sharing. This is an important aspect which we've touched on a few times before. If you look at our Dauntless Discord implementation, you'll notice that there are a great many channels. Each of us has access to a different cluster of channels based on our specific areas of responsibility. Very few of us have access to all the channels on the Dauntless Discord. There's close to 100 channels. Most of us can't see all of them. I think I might be the only person who can see every single channel because I'm the commanding officer. But it's worth paying attention to what each of those channels are and what they're for, so that we're posting information in the right place. Well, why does that matter? Because the people who are looking for the information that you're sharing are looking in a specific place to find that information. So if the information relates to this month's Crow's Nest or to this week's Crow's Nest videos, the place they're going to be looking for that is either in the Crow's Nest contributor channel or in the communications channel. People are not looking for that in the mess. They're not looking for that in the holodeck. They're not looking for that in the engine room. They're looking for it in the communications area. So when you want to pass on a relevant piece of information, it's important to think about where you're posting it. Even when it comes down to choosing between the bridge and the mess. Now, these are both big, broad channels that most of the crew can see, but what's the difference between the two? The bridge is limited to active duty personnel only, whereas the mess is open to active duty personnel and reserves. Think about the audience of who's reading your message. If you want something that's only visible to active duty personnel, which you probably do, especially if it's of some kind of a secure or personal nature, post it in the bridge. If it's some kind of fun or entertaining thing, you want to post a meme or a funny video, the mess is the right place for that. I've got a section here on specific reporting requirements, but I've actually already covered this, so I'm just going to move past that. Straight to additional considerations. So first among those is the chain of command. So respecting the hierarchy and following the establishing reporting lines. So again, the chain of command is part of our stylistic metaphor. It's part of our organizational structure. Command is not really the right word. That's just it's a terminology that we've borrowed from the fictional Starfleet, which has borrowed it from the military. What that means is reporting lines, so and areas of authority. So chapter commanding officer is responsible for everything that happens within a chapter. Then you have the department heads underneath the commanding officer. Each department head is responsible for a specific suite of activities that all form part of the chapter activities. And within that, there are specific duty stations that each have their own area of influence. So the chain of command goes from largest area of influence to narrower and narrower areas of influence. Chain of command from one to the next. Also, it mirrors the direction in which reporting happens. So reporting goes from narrow areas of influence up to broader areas of influence. You submit your report to that person, who is submitted to that person, who submitted to that report to that person. That is the chain of command. Next is feedback and performance reviews. So it's important to actively seek and to provide constructive feedback to enhance performance. Now, this doesn't mean that we should be criticizing and critiquing everything that everybody does. But if you see something that's glaring that somebody's doing that they could be improving on, it doesn't hurt to bring that to their attention. But this relates us back to the concept of praise in public, critique in private. So you don't want to be shouting out in a public channel, hey, you messed up here. This was room for improvement. You want to be taking that to them privately. But likewise, positive feedback is also very important. So if you see that somebody has done something cool, congratulate them for it. Let them know that you appreciate the work that they've done, and that should be done in public so that everybody can see how cool that person is. Next is professional development. So continuously learning and improving skills to stay current and effective. This is part of mission readiness, especially the mental side of mission readiness. So it's not only about improving your overall skills and your overall capabilities, but it's about staying up to date with what's new and what's relevant. For example, in the engineering department, there's a lot of focus around artificial intelligence and how we can incorporate that into our Dauntless systems. As you know, we already have one AI-based bot here in the Dauntless Discord, and while he was cutting edge state of the art a year ago, he's looking kind of dated by 2025 standards. So the engineering team are giving serious thought to how we can go about upgrading him or replacing him with a superior version. Next is ethical decision making. So we are accountable by upholding Starfleet's values and principles in all actions and choices. I've already articulated some of the specific values that are relevant to accountability, but essentially it's important to remember that we are Starfleet officers. We represent the organization of Starfleet and of the USS Dauntless, and therefore we represent each other. And when I'm making an ethical choice, I need to do so with the weight of knowing that I am representing the personal reputations of every other member of this crew. And I hope each member of this crew remembers the same is true of them. Each time each of us makes a choice on ethical grounds, we are bearing with us the reputations of every other member of the crew. Which means that we are expected to lead by example. So that's setting a positive example for others through consistent demonstration of accountability. Now, when I talk about leadership, I don't only mean the senior staff. I don't only mean commissioned officers, although it's especially those people. Everybody is potentially a leader by example. Even if you are our newest crewman recruit, you can be leading by example by living the life of an exemplary Starfleet officer. You can be an example to the people around you and even the people above you in the chain of command by living in an accountable way and making sure that you are dotting all of your T's and crossing all of your I's in your Starfleet career from day one onwards. So by embodying these core concepts, Starfleet officers and crew uphold the highest standards of accountability, ensuring the success of our missions, not only our individual discrete missions, but our overall mission and the well-being of the organization as a whole. So let's talk about practical applications of accountability on the Dauntless. So accountability is a cornerstone of effective operations, on an organization like ours. Every member, regardless of our rank or our position, has specific responsibilities that contribute to the overall success of the ship and her missions. And now, I'm not only talking about duty station holders here, I'm also talking about standard position holders. Just because you haven't committed to a specific set of deliverables doesn't mean that you haven't or still committed to a set of global deliverables that apply to every Starfleet officer, to everyone who wears the uniform. And so we are all accountable for all of those things. So here's some aspects of the Dauntless's organizational framework that outlines the expectations and consequences associated with various roles and responsibilities. So duty station holders specifically are the volunteers who've stepped up to take on specific roles. They are the backbone of the ship's operations. The duty station holders are trying to avoid personal comparisons here, but frankly, the duty station holders are the most important members of the crew because they are the ones who are doing all of the work. They ensure that the essential tasks that the ship needs in order to function are completed efficiently and effectively. Duty station holders have taken on a level of accountability beyond what everybody else has, and are accountable for fulfilling the duties of their assigned roles. They have a list of agreed upon deliverables, and they have committed to doing that work. And that includes maintaining proficiency in their assigned tasks, attending required training, because there is often training required, especially during the induction process, and completing their duties to the best of their ability. So what do I mean by duty station holders? For those who might not be up to speed on that, we've done a lot of duty station videos, but if you haven't seen any of those yet, we're talking about people like, for example, the Chief Operations Officer, who is responsible for seeing the day-to-day operations of the ship, which includes especially task management, resource allocation, and personnel management. So the Chief of Operations is accountable for ensuring that the ship's operations run as smoothly and efficiently by ensuring that every member of the crew has what they need in order to do their job, whether that's information or equipment or uniforms, It's up to the operations team in general and the chief operations officer in particular to ensure that everybody has what they need. The other side of that is people who are not necessarily duty station holders, but still have a very important job, and that is away team leaders. So away team leaders are the highest ranking members in each of our various away teams. What is an away team? Well, we are an organization that exists principally online, but we have groups of members in multiple cities around the world. And those members who live in relative physical proximity to one another around that city, they are designated an away team. The highest ranking member in each away team is by default the away team leader. And whether they're a duty station or holder or not, they are responsible for leading away missions, for which includes things like planning, execution, and reporting. Away team leaders are accountable for the safety and success of their missions, as well as the well-being of their team members. And most importantly, away team leaders are required to work alongside or embedded within the operations department to make sure that their away team members have all the information and equipment and logistical support that they need in order to physically attend missions, especially priority 1 missions. So those are the kinds of deliverables that are important in various positions of authority within the Dauntless. Then you have mission commanders who are not necessarily duty station holders. These are not even necessarily away team leaders, but these are people who have taken on the responsibility of organizing, planning, and executing missions. So what is a mission? A mission is an activity, whether it's an online activity or an in-person activity. Each thing that we do together as a crew is a mission. And mission commanders are people who have taken on the responsibility of planning, executing, and reporting on those missions. So they play a critical role in ensuring that missions are completed successfully, or in fact at all, and that the members are aware of their responsibilities in attending those missions. So how are mission commanders accountable? So they are accountable for planning, which is developing the mission plans, assigning roles and responsibilities, ensuring that all team members are prepared for that mission. It's execution, which is physically leading the mission, making decisions in the field when we're on the ground and adapting to changing circumstances. It's reporting. So once the mission is complete, it's gathering all the necessary information about the information. It's about the mission, compiling it into a report and submitting it to the senior staff, which includes logging attendance, keeping track of who all was present, who all was wearing their correct and accurate uniform, and who was serving in a command role. And then, unfortunately, sometimes, especially with priority 1 missions, it involves assigning fail to report in flags. So when a member of their team has not reported in, has either did not attend the mission or did not let them know that they weren't coming, then it would be the mission commander's responsibility to recommend that a fail to report in reprimand be assigned to that member. It's still at the command discretion whether or not the FTRI will actually be applied to that person's record or not, but the mission commander should be issuing that recommendation when completing their report. Another example is when it comes to priority 1 missions as a whole. I've spoken about priority 1 missions a few times, and it's on my mind because we have one scheduled for this weekend. So priority 1 missions are critical missions that require mandatory participation from all active duty members. So if you are an active duty member, which means you have access to the screening room channel in Discord, you are required to attend all priority 1 missions. That's all of us. These missions involve issues that are critical to one of the first 2 standing orders under our mission. So they either relate to promoting Star Trek as a vision of the future, as a philosophy, which would be something like attending a movie premiere for a new Star Trek feature film if it was to be released in theaters, which hasn't happened since 2016. These things don't happen very often. What does happen far more often is the second category, and these are missions that with a philanthropic focus that have a life or death consequences associated with them. And that is specifically our blood donation missions. And that happens every 2 months. So what is that? How is accountability relevant here? So not just when we're talking about priority 1 missions, we're not just talking about the duty stations associated with it. So like the chief medical officer who's responsible for coordinating the whole blood donation mission. We're not talking only about the away team leaders whose job it is to coordinate their specific teams, but the accountability that every single member of the crew has in their participation of the mission. So all members are accountable for responding to the invitations to the priority 1 missions and to attend as directed. Failure to do so result in disciplinary actions. So what are the consequences of failing to report in? Well, you could get the fail to report in flag, which is a disciplinary protocol it sits on your record, and it's something you want to desperately avoid because it limits your in fact, it completely eliminates your advancement opportunities within the Dauntless. As long as it's on your record, you want to get that scrubbed as soon as you possibly can. And if you do inadvertently manage to get yourself assigned an FTRI, then it is your responsibility. You are then accountable for making sure that gets removed by ensuring that you have an exemplary record going forward, and then appealing the decision when your record has been cleaned up to ensure that that FTRI is removed so that you then have advancement opportunities again. We also have the AWOL or desertion policy. So this is a new policy since 2025. So this is where all members are accountable for maintaining their level of activity and communication within the ship. Each of us who are active duty are required to check in with another member of our crew, typically our direct superior, at least once a month, hopefully a lot more often than once a month. We have a thriving community here in Discord. We should all be checking in multiple times a day, if not all the time, but at least once a month with a direct superior. And failing to do that may also result in censure. What kind of censure? Well, specifically the absent without leave or AWOL status. So this is something that is essentially just a warning. It's again added to your file so that we can remember that you were AWOL during this month. But if you get 6 consecutive months, you get the AWOL flag 6 months consecutively, then you will be classified as a deserter. You'll be removed from the ship immediately, and you will probably not be allowed to rejoin because we don't adopt deserters. So that's not something that we want, and that is a level of accountability that we are all subject to. Another one is when it comes to online event engagement. So this is another new policy in 2025. So we have, again, 2 different kinds of missions. We've got regular missions, which happen on the ship. Again, that's a metaphor. What they mean is these events take place online, so typically through Discord. And then we have away missions, which are missions that happen physically out in the world. The trouble is that with online missions, it can be easy for somebody to attend inadvertently, to log into the mission channel and then walk away from their PC, fall asleep, alt-tab away, and then it looks like they're attending, but they're not actually. So what we've had to do is implement a status report protocol there, which includes another layer of accountability. Each member who is actually engaging in that mission is required to register the fact that they have participated when a status report request is made. So the mission commander will pop up a message in the chat during the course of the mission, and every active member of the crew who can see it is expected to respond in order to register their participation. And the mission commander can then use that engagement as the roll call for the mission instead of having to scroll up through the chat to see who was there. All right, so and the next one is uniforms. So uniforms, again, are something that we've spoken about in a few other briefings. But as it relates to accountability, so accountability is closely related to uniforms, and we often will use the term uniform when we're talking about sort of the umbrella term for all Starfleet officers for the uniform. This is something that was covered in I think was it Star Trek DS9 for the uniform, and there was also in Voyager Coda. Chakotay spent a lot of time talking about the importance of the uniform and why it matters, because the uniform identifies you as being part of a collective. The collective is the USS Dauntless in particular and Starfleet as a whole. So uniforms are a visual representation of your affiliation, of your status. So it includes your branch of color, it includes your rank, and your commitment to the organization. So making proper use of a uniform is a personal and a collective accountability. So here's how accountability relates to the use of uniforms. So it's a visual representation of your membership and status. They communicate your membership and status within the Dauntless and within Starfleet. So again, through your branch of service color, through your rank insignia, through your comm badge. Some uniforms have medals and other interesting insignia on them. And by wearing the correct uniform, correct and accurate, a uniform as a member publicly identifies with the organization and their role within it, demonstrating accountability for their chosen affiliation and rank. It also is an adherence to a dress code. So mission commanders, when they're scheduling a mission, will establish a dress code for that mission, which will stipulate which is the correct uniform to wear. And it'll specify whether it's Class A, Class B, Class C, or maybe civilian. And crew members are accountable for knowing what that means and for adhering to those dress codes, ensuring that we present a unified professional image for the Dauntless. The more of us that are wearing the same uniform, the better we all look as a collective. And failing to wear the right uniform might be seen as a lack of attention to orders or a failure to meet expectations. Now, to be clear, uniforms are not mandatory almost all of the time. I can't think of any examples where uniforms were required, but we want to make sure that we're working as hard as we can to ensure that we present a united visual front by making sure that we are all in proper uniform when and if required. It also represents professionalism and standards. So the sources we like to emphasize that the importance of maintaining uniforms in excellent condition. So just wearing a uniform in itself is not enough. It needs to look good. It needs to be clean, pressed, properly fitted, and has to display the correct insignia. In fact, if it doesn't display the correct insignia, then you are not in uniform. So the expectation of cleanliness and accuracy reflects the professional standards of a Starfleet officer, because that's what you are. When you put on the uniform, you are a Starfleet officer. Members are accountable for upholding those standards in their appearance. It's also important to remember that when you're putting together a uniform, the last step in the process is getting a uniform certified. So you get it approved or inspected by the quartermaster, and hopefully approved based on that inspection, that the uniform you've built is correct and accurate. So you're not just going out in public wearing whatever, you are actually wearing an approved and inspected and certified uniform to make sure that you are upholding the professional standards of the Dauntless. And in fact, a uniform is part of your mission-ready equipment. So you want to make sure that the aspects of mission readiness include improving yourself, making yourself the best possible version of yourself, but also it's about equipping yourself with the things that you need in order to execute a mission. And one of the things that you need to equip yourself with is a proper set of uniforms. Some uniforms are more expensive and more complicated than others to assemble. This one, the Class B, the SDU, can be quite expensive and time-consuming to assemble, which is why we have an alternative option, the Class C, the LU. But really, that should be considered a short-term supplement and used for specific missions. Really, once you've been a member for a certain amount of time, you really should be working towards your SDU, because it is quite important that we present that unified visual front. Recognition and promotion is also a factor here. So when you're wearing a correct and accurate uniform at events, first of all, you can get double attendance points by attending in uniform. So if you attend a mission, you get 1 attendance point when the crew evaluations are being calculated at the end of the month. If you attend in uniform, in a CAC uniform, you get twice as many points. So you're accelerating your progress towards your next promotion. But also, part of what your uniform displays, at least most uniforms, is your rank. So you are displaying to the people around you what level of attainment you have obtained during your Starfleet career. And to be clear, we want to be clear about drawing a distinction between wearing a uniform and wearing a cosplay. This is not a costume. This is a uniform that we've actually earned the right to wear. This represents our actual status within a real organization. And yes, some people would wear a uniform like this as a costume. We are not those people. We are the people who wear these uniforms because they actually mean something, because we've earned the right to wear them. And that is an important distinction. A uniform represents who you are, what you are, your actual status within a given context. A costume is when you're dressing up as somebody else, when you're in disguise or pretending to be or playing at being somebody that you are not. Is an important distinction about uniforms. There's one specific uniform set that's relevant to the Dauntless only, as far as I know. I don't believe any other chapters use this standard. And that is that we will sometimes recognize external parties as a uniform provider under specific circumstances. What do I mean by that? So one of our regular missions here in Tau Sector anyway, is that every Saturday morning we meet for Parkrun. Parkrun is a free timed 5K run in parks around the world. And many people participate in Parkrun. And one of the things the cool things about participating in parkrun is that when you reach certain milestones, which is to say, once you've run 25 parkruns or 50 or 100, 250, 500, you unlock a parkrun milestone t-shirt. So they will issue you a t-shirt with the appropriate milestone printed on the back, and it's a specific color. You are then faced with the choice of, do I wear my official Dauntless uniform for this mission because it's a Dauntless away mission, or do I wear my nifty new parkrun milestone t-shirt? Well, we've taken away the need to make that choice, because by wearing your official parkrun milestone t-shirt, that counts as a uniform only for that mission. So your parkrun milestone t-shirt doesn't count as a uniform for any other context, only for parkrun missions. But we have in the past included other third-party apparel providers as temporary and context-specific uniform providers for specific missions. And we'd be open to considering others again in the future if the need arises. So although most of the time we're talking about specific Starfleet uniforms, Dauntless uniforms, there are occasions where supplementing that with something else is a viable option. It doesn't take away from what you've earned. In fact, those instances, like for example, the parkrun t-shirt, just demonstrates an additional thing that you've earned in addition to your Starfleet career. So in essence, the proper use and maintenance of the uniform within the Dauntless reflects a member's accountability to the organizational standards and to mission requirements, their professional image. It's a tangible way in which members can demonstrate their commitment and responsibility. All right. I prepared a whole section here on mission accountability, but you know what? I'm just going to skip it because we've done a lot of videos on mission readiness of late, and I think that I've said everything I needed to say on that for now. But I do want to do this section here about fostering a culture of accountability. So within any successful organization, a culture of accountability is paramount. It ensures that everyone takes ownership of their tasks and their responsibilities, leading to increased efficiency, productivity, and overall success. So here's how we can continue to foster such a culture. So we can lead by example. Leaders at all levels. Again, you don't have to be the commanding officer to be a leader. If you're a day one recruit, you can still lead by example. And how do you do that? You embody your accountability. You live your life by the standards of accountability. You demonstrate a strong commitment to your responsibilities, whatever responsibilities they may be, whether that is completing your orientation course or whether it's submitting the monthly status report on behalf of the chapter. It's committing to your responsibilities and owning the outcomes of your decisions. So if you're a day late on either of those things, you need to own those choices and set the standard for others to follow. So if anybody is watching, if anybody can see the work that you're doing, they should know what the correct standard is. Setting and having clear expectations. So every team member must have a clear understanding of their roles, responsibilities, and their expected outcomes. Clarity of clear expectations minimizes confusion and ensures that everybody knows what is expected of them. So making sure that whenever we are asking somebody to do a thing, whether it's a direct request or whether we're simply putting out a spec for a piece of work that needs doing, making sure that you are as clear and precise as possible is quite important so that everybody knows what they are accountable to when they take on that responsibility. Providing necessary resources and support. So to fulfill your duties, team members need access to the necessary resources, tools, and support, which includes training, mentorship, and a collaborative environment where they feel comfortable seeking help when needed. If you see a member of your team is working hard on something and they're struggling, it's up to you to make sure that they have the necessary support in terms of assistance, help, backup, or any other tools or resources you can provide them. There are departments within the Dauntless whose entire function is to provide this kind of support. The operations team, as I mentioned, it's their role to provide support to the rest of the crew, but it shouldn't only be on them. Each and every one of us is accountable to provide the necessary support and resources to the people around us if we can see that they need it. We also want to make sure that we're recognizing and rewarding responsibility. So acknowledging and rewarding those who consistently demonstrate accountability reinforces its importance. This can be done through public recognition, performance bonuses, or other incentives. Now, performance bonuses aren't really relevant to us here, but out in other contexts of life. But in the Dauntless, we have our baked-in reward and recognition systems like promotions and awards, but those are only as effective as our information. So we can only present people awards if we know that they're doing things. We can only have you win the fitness challenge if we know how many steps you've done this month. We can only award you the reading challenge if we know how many pages you've read this month. We can only promote you to a higher rank if we know all of the work that you've done. If you're operating in obscurity and you're not communicating your progress to the rest of us, we can't offer you the rewards that you may have earned. Something like doing community service. If you're not reporting your community service to us, we can't reward you for that. There are rewards that we can either issue you ourselves or we can nominate you for at a Starfleet level. But you need to tell us that you're doing that stuff. If you're serving at another Starfleet level, say you're dean of a faculty at Starfleet Academy, Starfleet Fandom Academy, Starfleet Educational Services, they have a new name. If you're doing that kind of work, the Academy staff are not reporting back to me as your commanding officer that you're doing that work. It's on you to make sure that you include that in your crew report so that I know that you're doing that work, so that I can offer you the relevant recognition for the work that you're doing there. So that rewarding and recognition is an important part of my job as part of the senior staff of this crew, but I'm only as good as the information I have at my disposal. We also need to address negligence inappropriately. I don't want to foster a culture of ratting on your fellow Starfleet officers. We don't want to be tattletaling. We don't, snitches get stitches and that kind of thing. But if it's clear that somebody is not living up to their responsibilities, I'd rather know than not know. Maybe take it up with that person directly. If they're not responsive to your intervention, then you can move it up the chain of command so that action can be taken. But there are mechanisms in place with which we can address and hopefully resolve anybody who's failing to live up to their responsibilities, anybody who's not acting in a properly accountable way, because that person is as accountable to the rest of us as each of us is. And we also like to encourage initiative. So this is what we call your idea, your project. The last thing we want is to have people suggest ideas for other things, suggest ideas for work for other people to do. That's not how we do things around here. If you've got a suggestion, that means you're committing to do that thing. And we want you to do that thing. We want your idea to be real, assuming that it is beneficial, but they often are. Lots of us have very bright ideas, but it's not fair for you to make a suggestion for somebody else to do some work. Unless you're prepared to run that project yourself, you might need to spend a bit more time thinking about that idea to the point where it's something that you can take yourself. Promoting a sense of ownership and encouraging team members to take the lead on their ideas. We foster a culture of innovation and accountability. This empowers individuals to take responsibility for their contributions and see them through to completion. So fostering a culture of accountability requires a multifaceted approach. It's not a simple process, whether it's as an organization or as an individual. By implementing these strategies and consistently reinforcing the importance of accountability, we can create an environment where everyone feels empowered to take ownership of their work and to contribute to the overall success of the organization. All right, I want to take a look at questions quickly. Let's see if we have any. That's today. All right, I'm not seeing any @ aimed at me. Fantastic. Hopefully that means that I've answered everybody's questions. Good. So I just want to summarize quickly. So accountability is crucial for maintaining the integrity and effectiveness of the USS Dauntless. By embracing responsibility, fulfilling our duties, and adhering to established protocols, we contribute to a strong and thriving Star Trek community. And a culture of accountability ensures that the USS Dauntless can effectively pursue its mission of promoting Star Trek and its values. Accountability isn't just about responsibility. It's the foundation of success for the Dauntless and its mission. By embracing accountability in all aspects of Starfleet life, we can build a strong community, embody Starfleet values, and ensure that the USS Dauntless continues to boldly go where no one has gone before. Thank you. That is all for today. You are dismissed. Swart out.